Recently, creators on social media have posed the question, why don't Black Americans have any culture? Which is interesting given that Black Americans are not the ones who are asking. In this episode, we discuss why this question is a fallacy by amplifying the history behind the Black American experience. As an added treat, we will delve into differences between race, nationality, and ethnicity. Because for some, the difference can be very confusing. Hello, Cindy.
Hi, Chanel.
How are you?
That caffeine that I drink is really pulling me through.
It's kicking in.
It's kicking in.
Vroom, vroom.
Yeah, we're not going to say it, but we are unhinged with the time that it is right now.
Absolutely.
Because it looks like it's daytime.
We've done worse, though.
We have.
We
have done way worse.
Way worse.
I feel like we could have an entire podcast episode on...
Let's do it.
My cat's playing with the cords. But we can have an entire podcast episode on the making of season 1.
Honestly.
Season 2.
Yeah.
The making of season 2 and the disaster that was for a good while. But yeah, no, the caffeine that we got is definitely helping, and I'm ready to start talking about this topic.
Let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Cindy, have you been seeing these videos about British food?
Yes.
Oh,
my God. What it's called? What, a Chinese?
Yeah. Can I have a Chinese? Having a Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
The things that they eat, I'm scared, Cindy.
I'm not. I'm intrigued.
You are intrigued.
I want to try it.
You really have so much faith. At least half faith.
So here's the thing. I'm a foodie. I'm just a foodie. And I live on the principle that I'm down to try anything once.
Yeah.
Once, right? Yeah. And I think for me, when I look at a British Chinese food, to me, each component of it doesn't look scary. I think the part that worries me is when it gets mixed together.
Oh my God.
Right? Because just think about it this way. Taking a Kung Pao chicken with some like shrimp fried rice, right? Potentially a lo mein, and I think like a veggie. I believe I've seen some with veggies. And then you have a curry. All those separately sound pretty good. Mm-hmm. But then when you see them putting together the plate, they take a little bit of the Kung Pao chicken, which is fine. Like you typically, when you have a plate of Chinese food in general, you just put it all on your plate. It's a drizzling of the curry, the sauce, and then adding French fries, or I guess they're chips.
The chips.
I think that's what really loses me.
And what's really blowing me about the chips is, first of all, I haven't seen a British chip that looks appetizing to me. They look like the type of fries that I don't like, but just personal preference.
It's like they're steak fry cut.
Yeah, kind of.
But they don't look crispy.
They don't look crispy. They look kind of soggy.
Yeah, they were made and they were kind of left out.
So a lot of them were talking about like salt and pepper chili chips or something like that. And I watched, a poor Chinese woman make this dish, and they have a wok normal. They put the fries in the wok and they cook it with I think it's like bell pepper or something.
Okay.
Some type of pepper. They put it with fries. The fries are already fried. They put it in the wok with peppers and onions or something. And then they saute fries.
Dude, it's so bad because you're saying this to me and saying concerned. It sounds good.
It's going to be soggy, girl.
Yeah, but okay, this is my issue, right? You can eat potatoes in all forms.
See, I don't like a soggy fry, though. Something about fries, when you have them soggy, they just taste bad.
I think I rework my brain into telling myself that it's not a fry. And then it's just I think it's more because you can mash it, and then immediately I'm thinking mashed potatoes.
Yeah, I would have to see the texture.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking a normal fry. If you did that to a normal fry, it's going to be, how you can't put fries in the refrigerator and then come back to them?
Yes.
That's the texture that I'm expecting.
It's hard also to bite into. That was that I should not do that again.
We might blur that.
Please.
We'll see how genuine our generous I am while I'm editing.
Please be generous. It's literally 2 seconds. You could do me a favor, please. Anyway.
But yeah, it looks like it's going to be soggy. But in total, I'm terrified of British food. I'll try it because, you know, I'm planning on going to London.
I'm also trying to go. Just on separate trips.
Yeah, separate trips because she's a hater.
I'm not a hater. I think Chanel's the hater because we plan to go to London and Ireland together, but then somebody comes out and says, hey, we need to save our budget for Japan, which makes sense. But then she comes back a couple months later after I found out a friend of mine has moved there and has invited me to come visit her and goes, oh, guess what? The trip's back on.
Period.
But I'm not going at the same time you're trying to go.
Period.
And so that's how we ended up on separate trips. But I'm excited to try the food.
Let me know.
I will.
Because I'm terrified.
I will.
Because even besides the Chinese, the other foods, I'm scared. Have you seen like the Yorkshire pudding?
Yes.
That looks scary.
I think what's going to be the hardest part for me is I'm going to be going into a lot of these foods with an assumption of what it's going to taste like.
And it's not.
And it's going to shock me.
Yeah.
The one thing I am really excited to try is English breakfast.
That I am also excited to
Yes.
try. I'm a little scared of the blood sausage.
Yeah.
But that I'm a little scared of. But the rest, it looks like it would be a nice little tasty meal.
Yes. And I'm going to say this out loud, and British people, don't come for me. I'm packing hot sauce.
That's such a smart idea. I should bring seasoning.
Actually,
I should bring seasoning.
I'm packing hot sauce.
Because I was watching this video and they were describing like why British food is the way that it is. And it's what you said, like, okay, you have all of these things that aren't really flavorful. And then you just take a sauce and you dunk it on it.
And it helps bring flavor to the whole thing.
And it helps bring flavor to the whole thing. And I think they were describing what it was. It has to do with like Victorian standards or like war or something like that. I forgot. But yeah, that's how all of their meals are set up.
Yep.
It's things that might not have any flavoring, but the sauce is what's supposed to flavor it. But I'm scared. What if I don't like the sauce?
Well, yeah.
That's going to be a problem.
Right. Another thing that I'm excited to try is a lot of the cultural influence, the ethnic cuisine. I've seen videos, and even my friend who was there, I said to her, I was like, yeah, you know, I'm really trying to eat these things. And she goes, girl, why are you wasting your time with that? You need to go to like this Indian restaurant over here.
The Indian food, I'm so ready. My whole body's ready.
I want the Indian food and I want the Korean food.
Ooh, they have Korean food there?
Girl. So I used to follow more heavily these two British white men called Korean Englishmen.
Okay.
And it's pretty much a white man who, I think he was a military kid. His dad was stationed in Korea, so he went to the cultural school. He speaks fluent Korean. He ate a lot of the cuisine, and when he came back to England, when his family moved back, he was missing it. So he went on a search, and pretty much what his whole page was, it's his best friend that I think he met in college also does a page with him, and his best friend's like the filmographer. Mm-hmm. That's the word, filmographer.
That works.
So they do a whole series of introducing Korean culture and Korean language to British people. Mm-hmm. And there's Korean restaurants in Britain.
I hope they hold up because we're in California.
Well, I don't know if they're going to hold up, but it's a lot of like Korean immigrants in Britain.
Okay.
Like a lot of these like ethnic cuisines are like immigrants who come and they bring those restaurants too.
You see, I'm curious to see if just the Chinese really cater, because they cater. I feel like anywhere you go and get Chinese, they cater to whatever demographic is around them. So that's why American Chinese food is the way that it is. Yeah. The way that British Chinese food is. I don't know about other countries. And then Chinese food in China is apparently a completely different thing.
Yeah, but I feel like with American Chinese, like I feel like Panda Express is your perfect example of American Chinese food. Yeah. But there are still Chinese restaurants in America that you can get more authentic Chinese food.
But they still cater to the American palate. Like there's some things like orange chicken, that's not a thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
But I mean, like, if you go to a more authentic Chinese restaurant, you will see the orange chicken on the menu. But if you do more searching,
because we had some Chinese and they were giving us some real
right. So
but I feel like, so I'm curious if out there, if the Korean food is straight up Korean food from Korea or if it's catered to the British palate. That's what I'm curious.
I guess we're gonna have to.
You'll be able to tell at least somewhat.
and I'll check it.
Yeah, let me know.
But there's only so much time and so much food that you can eat.
And can you go try a Greg's sausage roll?
Yeah, I actually saw a video.
I swear, I want it to be good.
Everybody's calling it a Greg's.
A Greg's. Can I have a
Greg's.
Greg?
Yeah.
I want that to be good because I love sausage.
Okay. We'll discuss. We'll discuss.
Yeah,
I'll write this down.
Period.
You know, the thing is, I know I'm going, and for my friend who I know you're going to be listening to this episode. I think around the time, I know you're going to be listening to this episode. Hold me accountable.
Oh,
because I really want to go. We've talked about it enough. I just get anxiety when it comes to purchasing things in advance.
Yeah.
Because I'm afraid that things are going to happen. And even though I'm going to be meeting somebody there, it's my first time I'm going to be solo traveling.
Ooh,
out of the
a good
country.
point. And that's a big flight.
Yeah. So I'm anxious, but I really want to go. I really, really want to go. And we've already discussed dates. I know when I need to buy my tickets.
Yeah.
So I could do it today. I'm just anxious.
I have faith in you. You can do it, Cindy. You just need to believe in yourself. That's the key.
And be mindful of the fact that I do have the funds.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, because that's another thing. I technically have an emergency fund, and I put money into the emergency fund, and the money's going to come back, especially blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
But also I'm just like, okay, maybe I need to wait till I get the actual funds to buy the ticket. But by the time that time comes, those ticket prices could be double what they're currently right now.
It's true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But as we're kind of expanding our taste, not just like food wise, but like traveling to different places and stuff like that, I'm curious about what the culture is going to be like in Britain. You feel me? Mm-hmm. And especially because I know that there's a population of Black people in Britain. Mm-hmm. And Black British people and American Black people, I think we might be two different things.
Of course.
Same, but different.
Of course, because the culture is different.
Exactly.
Your culture, like, we've had conversations, I don't know if on the podcast, but just in general, about how the environment that you're raised in and the environment that you grow up in shapes a person.
Yeah.
We were just talking about it with respect to a movie that we both watched together, where it's just like we have two people who have the same kind of life situation, but the environment that they're molded in is different. So they're two vastly different people.
Yeah.
The main thing that we have in common with Black British people is that we're Black.
We're Black.
And to an extent, like, obviously what comes with the umbrella term of Black, such as like racism and, having mainly racism, but just like dealing with discrimination because of the color of your skin, I feel like that would be one of the main, if not the only commonality. Mm-hmm. But then when you kind of break down into like cultural experiences related to food, related to lifestyle, that's when you start deviating.
Yeah.
And I know for you, we had this conversation.
Ooh.
You have been seeing a lot of commentary made by Black British people on the Black American experience.
Yes. And, let's get into that. Why not?
Yeah, I'm here to listen.
Yeah. So first of all, just background wise, okay, my background, and this is something that I feel like people don't know. When it comes to demographics and identity, there is a few things that you look at. It's not just like, it's this and you're that,
Yes.
And so we have race, we have ethnicity, and we have nationality.
Right.
These are three different things, and they kind of coincide sometimes they don't. So for me, I am racially Black, period.
Black power.
Black power. Anyways,
yep.
So I'm Black racially. Ethnicity wise, I am a Black American, and specifically, I am the descendant of slaves in America. Okay. And then for my nationality, I'm American.
Right.
I'm a citizen of this country. And so I feel like a lot of people don't understand those three things, and that's what causes a lot of confusion for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So for you, what would your breakdown of those three things be?
So racially, I'm Black.
Black.
I mean, I feel like that one.
We're rooting for everybody
actually,
Black.
I don't want to make these jokes. Not in this. We'll cut it. Make it. No. I'll make it when the camera's off and there's no way that editing.
Remember. You're not gonna
I
remember.
will remember, but I'm gonna make it so that editing Chanel can't do me dirty. Right? So
editing Chanel, put it in.
Racially, I'm black. My nationality, I'm American. But my ethnicity is I'm Nigerian.
Oh my God.
Isn't that crazy? I think so. Your reaction is actually a reaction that I get a lot. Especially, well, especially if I'm introducing myself to people and they haven't seen my name before I've introduced myself.
Yes.
Because I introduce myself as Cindy. I don't introduce myself by my legal name, just because growing up, having a Nigerian legal name and going to a predominantly white school, especially when people are trying to learn how to read, I have a lot of consonants, double consonants next to each other that people don't see.
It doesn't exist in English.
Yes. So then it was just one of those things where my middle name is Cynthia. Like I go by Cindy as like a nickname from my middle name. And so when I'm introducing people to as Cindy, they look at me, they hear how I sound, they immediately think I'm a Black American. But then when they get to know me more and we start talking about things like food, for example.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, have never had collard greens, which I think is a staple in Black American.
Gonna change.
Yeah, Chanel's gonna make me some collard greens. But that's a staple in Black American households. But regardless, getting back to the point, I am ethnically, race, national. I'm ethnically Nigerian because I am a first generation American. Both my parents are immigrated here before I was born from Nigeria.
Yeah. And so I think our experiences growing up based on that difference, because our race is the same, our nationality is the same, but our ethnicities are different.
Yes.
And so I don't know about you. I feel like we have something similar and then something's different about our upbringing and, you know, the foods that we eat culturally and all that stuff.
I think where we have a similarity is the face value.
Yeah.
Right. If we were to walk together, if we were to talk together, right, and have a conversation, people will look at us immediately and assume they are the same.
Yeah.
Right? And that's just facial value. But when you get more, I guess, the internal, where your morals are, and that's based on the culture and how you were raised, that's where we have a lot more of the differences because we were in different households.
Yes. And then even to go further, you know, there will be like, for example, your name, you have a Nigerian name. And I remember there was this study they did where they compared like traditionally Black American names with foreign African names, immigrant names.
Yeah.
And they actually showed in that study that the immigrants were more likely to be hired over Black Americans.
Wait, you're serious?
I'm dead serious.
I heard the opposite.
Really?
I've heard the opposite.
We're going to have to look it up then.
Yeah. No, I've heard the opposite, that when you have an ethnic name, you're more inclined to know that they are someone who was Black, versus with Black Americans, they can have names that can pass as white.
Yes.
Right? Because you can meet
Here's
a Black.
the thing.
Okay.
I think we might be talking about two different things, because one was like Shaniqua, like names that you know that's a Black American person versus a Black immigrant. So I think it was a more specific study. Editing Chanel here to clear up this misunderstanding about the studies we are referencing. I found two studies. The first, Prejudice Against Black Americans versus Black Africans in College Admission, by Asia McCleary Gaddy. This was a synthesis of 3 studies. The key points were: a Black American was significantly less likely to be admitted when compared to a Black African applicant. There is evidence that the admittance of Black African applicants may provide a cover for discrimination against Black Americans. So this shows that ethnicity may play a role in college admissions. The second, are Emily and Greg more employable than Lakeisha and Jamal? A field experiment on labor market discrimination, by Marianne Bertrand and Senil Mullainathan. They sent out resumes with African American or white-sounding names. The white names received 50% more callbacks for interviews. Now, back to the podcast. So, same. Because I can understand that. If somebody's named Joe Smith,
Right.
That could be a black person.
Exactly.
Versus someone with a immigrant name, an African name. That might be different.
So I guess there's a hierarchy of like a black person who could have that has a white passing name.
Yes.
Is more likely to get chosen, mainly because they kind of
maybe you could be white,
pass under the radar, right? Then I guess after that is an African or American who has an African name, like someone like me.
Yeah.
And then it's a black American.
That's what it seems like. And especially like, I don't know if you remember this, The View. You always get crazy clips from
Is that the one with Whoopi?
With Whoopi Goldberg.
Excuse me.
I remember back in the day, I can't remember. Oh, it was That's So Raven. Do you remember that clip of her saying that she would never hire, Sharkeisha?
Raven
Simone got on international television and told people she would never hire a Sharkeisha.
Didn't they have an episode on That's So Raven where that was an issue?
Actually, yeah, where she was trying to get the job at the mall.
Yes, and she kept getting fired, and Chelsea found out it's because she was black. Make it make sense. Make it make sense.
It does.
But what was her reasoning behind it?
She was just saying it's not a professional name.
What's considered a professional name for
and
one?
How do you change your? It's
People
your name.
don't name themselves.
It's my name.
We didn't pick these names.
We didn't.
They were given to us. Like, yes, when you turn 18, you can go and change your name. But after 18 years by going by one name, right? Like, yes, there are instances in which name changing is very important. But, it's just one of those things where it's like it's not an everyday occurrence that when everybody turns 18, they go like, this is not the name that I want. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's not a person's fault, and a person shouldn't have to go and change their name because you deem it unprofessional.
Mm-hmm. That's brutal.
Yes.
And so, so there is kind of like a system in America where black immigrant people or first generation people versus black American people, it's kind of like we're pit against each other.
Yes.
And it seems like especially with like who gets a visa and things like that, they'll kind of like cherry pick certain people. I think Nigeria is a good example of that, where I've heard, I could be mistaken, that it's easier for a Nigerian person to immigrate here than someone in a different part of Africa. I
wonder if it has something to do with like relations between countries.
Probably,
because I know that I can have like, there's some countries, Africa and just generally in the world where you can't hold dual citizenship. Yeah. But Nigeria is one of the countries that you can have dual citizenship in.
And that's just because of, history and wars and all that stuff. And so it seems like in America, they're trying to, essentially bring in black immigrants, and it becomes kind of like the model minority thing where they try to, incentivize people who are immigrants to this country, either by bringing them in on student visas or whatnot, to where they get a certain leg up that typically black Americans are not afforded in this country. And like totally come here for school, all that stuff. I have no issue with that. But it becomes a situation where some black people, when they come here as immigrants, they'll say, we made it. What's wrong with you people? And they'll believe kind of the lies that, this country tells us about black people, black American people. They'll believe those lies and be like, we made it. So why aren't you guys making it? Why are you guys ghetto? Why are you guys this? Why are you And I think a lot of times that difference in experience, black Americans go through a lot of things that people do not acknowledge. And so, like, for example, bless you, my dear child.
Thank you.
For example, I was explaining gerrymandering to you. That's something that's used against black people because they're basically shoring up that certain districts, we'll include some of the black people, but we don't want to make sure there's too many black people in one district because they're all going to vote Democrat.
Right.
Shout out to us.
92%.
Period. And so that's an issue. Another issue is redlining. So like black people, they would say straight up, you cannot buy a house in this neighborhood. There's houses where I grew up on the deed. If I go to the court, city hall, whatever, look at deeds in my town, in the surrounding towns, it says you cannot sell this house to a black person. And so these are the things. There's definitely a lot more, but these are the things that Black Americans go through in this country that people do not even know happens.
Right.
Because where are you going to know? You're probably not interacting with a black person directly, a Black American person. And then who's telling our stories in schools? Who's telling our stories in media? It's typically the people who set up the systems of oppression.
Right. It's mainly stories. If you are to learn, stories are passed from a black person to a black person, right?
Yeah.
And even though it's like I'm not a Black American by ethnicity, there's still stories that I'm learning because, again, we're in a communal space. Like, we'll talk about things. And like, even with this podcast, I'm learning new things from you. This is how information gets spread. But of course, that just stops between, and like the information is just spread between people who look like us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And you have to be interacting with Black American people to really understand our culture and the struggle that we're going through in this country.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't take the time, or they just simply, you just don't interact. I mean, we make up 13% of this country, and that probably includes immigrant people too, because I think they count us in the same bucket.
Yeah. Well, at least when you go and you fill out like bubbling stuff for exams or just surveys or whatever, the category is Black/African American, and they don't ask for specifications afterwards of like where exactly this is. It's just Black/African American.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is crazy because I know, and I know this is not the topic of the conversation,
go ahead.
but African American, right, is a term that it can be used interchangeably by people who have been here for a long time, because majority of slaves are descendants from Africa, right? African American, or African American be used for people who are like me, who first generation, like typically when my dad told me growing up, he's like, you're Nigerian American. You're a subsector of African American, but specifically you're Nigerian American because the culture you have is Nigerian. Yeah. But I think the thing that is so interesting is that the conversation is always surrounding by Africa, but we have Black people in the Caribbean. Yes. You know, our closest friend, one of our closest friends is Dominican from the Dominican Republic, right? But yet they will fall under that umbrella term of Black. So I always just found that so interesting when you're bubbling, and it's like you never ask for any sort of clarification. Yeah. Because we were putting immigrants under that umbrella. And
it's like, is that... Yeah. We're just going to lump everybody together and not specify. Yeah, I agree with that. And if somebody rewinded the tape and saw what I identified myself as, I normally say Black American, descendant of slaves, because I like the specificity of who I am, right? Because we can both say we're African American. Right. I don't like that term. That's just me. I just say Black American because I've never even set foot in Africa. I'm not connected to Africa at all. Like nothing. Right. There's nothing.
Makes sense.
However many generations back for the last 300 years, none of my family has ever set foot in Africa. And so I think that's why I normally go with the term Black American. Right. Because I think of African American as you know, like Mexican American. You're from that area in the world, and you came here. So yeah, but so I like the specificity, and I think most Black Americans, I can't speak for all Black Americans, but I feel like we're kind of making that trend, and there's been a whole host of what Black Americans call themselves. I think like before, like Negro. That was a term that Black people would call themselves, is perfectly fine. Now that's out of fashion. Right. Don't come up to me calling me a Negro. I'm going to be like, girl.
It's a borderline of it's kind of like you're trying to say the slur.
Yeah, but you didn't quite make it there.
You were close.
Too close. Get away from me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then African American was in fashion, but then people were kind of like, okay, white people are coming up to me and calling me, well, you're African American, but why do I have to be African American? Like I've never even been associated with Africa for a very, very long time. So why can't I just be identified by my race? Because you're a white American. Why can't I be a
Black American?
You know what I mean? They didn't call them European Americans. They called them white Americans, but we're African Americans. So it's like that debate there.
Yep.
But yeah, so being who I am and, you know, living the life that I live, on my For You page, they said For You. And they were showing me videos of these Black British people talking crap. Crap.
Yeah.
Literally, dookie, out of your mouth. Yeah. And basically, I've heard these things on and on and on. Like it comes up so often, just like, even when I was a child, like they would always say this stuff. And it's always like, oh, Black Americans, like there's a few things. One of the main ones is Black Americans don't know where they come from. And that's weird for some reason. Like it would be like either I've seen people from the Caribbean say this to Black Americans, and we're looking at them like the Spider-Man meme, because you guys come from slavery too. So so I remember seeing, you know, certain people from the Caribbean going, hey, I'm Jamaican, I know where I come from, where do you come from? And then we're looking at them like we're from America,
right,
because of the same reason why you're from Jamaica. What's not clicking? Yep. And then the same thing with British Black people, saying a similar thing, like either they're from the Caribbean or they're from Africa, a certain country in Africa, and they'll say, we know where our roots are, why don't you know where your roots are, where do you come from? And we're like, America, because we built our lives here, we have a culture here, we don't know anything else but America.
Do you know what this makes me think of?
What?
Why isn't that question asked of white Americans?
It's never.
Do you realize that, or I guess the general do you realize that the only people who are originally from America are Native Americans? Yep. Any other person that is not a Native American or is not a descendant of a Native American should be being asked the same question. Yep. Because if you were to go to, I don't know, let's just say a random white person on the street and be like, where are you from? They're going to say the same thing as if you went to a Black American. Oh, I'm from Chicago. Yeah. Right? And then it's like, if you get the, which question that I hate, where are you really from?
Really actually from.
Right? They can go and be like, okay, well, my great, whatever many greats immigrated here from Europe. Yeah. Can that not be the same thing of a Black American who is a descendant of slaves? Yeah. You can say, well, I was a descendant of slaves, which means that my ancestors were taken from their rightful place where they were living and forced to be here. Yeah. Huh? Right? Yes. So I feel like that's the part that always gets me with these conversations, because you have shown me these videos. Is the fact that question could be asked of anybody who's here. Yeah. Anybody. Yeah. Except the Native American, right? Yeah. And then they want to make it like there's something wrong with us. It's a gotcha moment. It's like a gotcha moment, but we don't understand because, girl, especially the Caribbean people, I don't understand. Yeah. I actually have not seen any of that discourse. I've only seen British Black people. Yeah, no, there was this like really popular streamer, and he was saying the same thing, like a similar thing of that vibe, because he's Caribbean ethnically, but I guess he's living in America, and he was essentially like, you guys don't know where you come from, but I know where I come from. I come from the Caribbean. You know, and then same thing with like the British people, like, okay, you're literally from that country, that's fine. But in Britain, Black people are immigrants there. Like, Black people did not build that country. Yeah. Black people have not been there in mass numbers for centuries. Right. That's not the same as in America. But also, at the same time, a lot of these Black British people are ending up going to a lot of these places because of colonialization. Preach. She said it correctly. Preach. You know, because if I think of specifically Nigeria, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to explain some Nigerian history, and let me know if you do know it. And I'm just like, you know, but I believe the year 1960, I think it was October 1st, 1960, that was when Great Britain said to Nigeria, we're going to give you your independence, right? Nigeria was previously colonized by Great Britain. And there is a book by Chimamanda Achebe, which I think is like something
Things Fall Apart? Is it that
I think
one?
maybe Things Fall or Half of a Yellow Sun.
Yeah.
Something like that, where they touch on it. But it's what I'm trying to get at is the Biafran War happened maybe 6 or so years later, which caused a lot of like upheaval in Nigeria because of the influence of Great Britain. But because of the influence of Great Britain bringing in English language and the culture of Great Britain, I feel like that kind of started that connection between Nigeria and London. So you have a lot of Nigerians who immigrate between them just because of that initial influence. But at the same time, a lot of these issues and the reason why you have all this is because of colonialization. That's what's causing the issue. And I feel like that can also be tied to here. A lot of these Black Americans, the reason why they're here and the reason why they supposedly don't know their culture is because of colonialization. And the influence of these white people. A lot of these white people, their ancestors having these savior complexes, not even necessarily a savior complex. They just wanted free labor. Right? So to me, I feel like that, I forgot what my initial point was, but I feel like that was what the biggest issue is. Is that hand influence, that claw that came in to pick you up and move you somewhere else.
Right? Cause those issues.
Right?
And that's a good point, because a lot of people, why are you living in Britain? You know where you're from. Why aren't you living in your home country? Because Britain or another European country came to your homeland and screwed things up.
Right. Like 1960 to 2024 is not a
lot of
long
time. Not a lot of time at all.
Yeah.
And I was seeing, you see all these memories popping up of things that pissed me off. So there's this one guy, I believe he's Nigerian. I think he's an ex-football player. And he had this series on YouTube, basically where it's like talk to a black man. And it was like,
I know who you're talking about.
Right. I forgot his name.
I feel like I know who you're talking about, and I don't like him.
I don't like him either.
I don't like him.
Look at us. Bonding over hate.
Okay. This is the thing too that I'm gonna let you continue, but it's stuff like this sometimes. I think it's the same thing with the Black British people, how they look at Black Americans, and then also how we're having a commentary of like Black British people or this African man. I hate sometimes where it's like the loud minority is making a bad impression on the majority, because I don't know if this guy is from Nigeria or if he's someone similar to me who is Nigerian but raised in America. Him being so loud and so wrong is making someone like me look bad. Someone like me who's willing to sit down and like, there have been conversations that we've had where I've said stuff that is like left field and out of pocket. Like, I don't know if you remember, but we had a conversation about chitlins and I made like a out of pocket comment about it. And I like took a moment. I'm like, hey, that was out of pocket. I am so sorry. And I feel like there are other people who are like that, who are willing to sit down and have those conversations and learn and correct themselves when they're wrong. But again, that is the silent majority.
Yeah.
And so anyway, continue with this man who I can't remember his name, which is good.
Yeah,
he doesn't need to be platformed.
But essentially, so he had that series, right, where it was like talk to a black man. And like, for example, on this, there was, I think this was closer to BLM times, so that tensions were through the
higher,
roof.
Yeah.
He sat down with police officers and was like, talk to me as a black man about racial relations in America. You know what I mean? I feel like there's a place.
There's a time and a place.
And you're in the wrong place and time.
I don't think there's ever going to be a time where it's appropriate to sit down with police officers and ask them.
Especially when you don't identify with the struggle that Black Americans go through when it comes to the police.
Or claiming that you don't, right?
Especially.
Right?
Yeah, he goes out of his way to claim that.
I think the issue is not necessarily the relation, it's claiming that you don't. Because again, visibly, there's nothing different between us.
Yeah.
with me and a Black British person, if we're sitting side by side and we don't utter a word, nobody will be able to tell because racism.
Yep.
Nobody will be able to tell where each one of us is from.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
And if we want to even take it a step farther, because, there's a lot of cultural influence when it comes to clothing, put us in the exact same outfit.
Yep.
And if you put us in the exact same outfit, you're probably more likely going to get people to say that we're twins because of racism. You know what I mean? So when it comes to people like that Black man who is claiming that the situation doesn't pertain to him, if it's dark outside, you're running in a hoodie, you are a perpetrator, even if you didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Because you were a Black man.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that gets me so angry sometimes, is assuming that a lot of these problems don't apply to us. Yes. I cannot relate to the struggle of people claiming that I don't have culture or I don't know where I come from. But even still, because I look like a Black American, I sound like an American, people are going to put those situations on me and treat me a specific way because they're making assumptions based off the way I look. The amount of times in history classes growing up, because I'm from Arizona, a predominantly white place, predominantly white state, and they go and talk about slavery and the room just turns and looks at me.
They look at you.
And I have to go, I'm not a descendant of slaves.
And then they go,
my dad moved here. This is so funny. I'm going to say my dad moved here 30 years ago. I've been saying my dad has moved here 30 years ago since I was in high school. So at this point, it's longer than 30 years. But regardless, the point stays the same, right? This is not my story.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because I look and I sound like this is my story, you're putting the story on me. And the only way that you're going to know it's not my story, because you, again, the general you is you're racist, is if I tell you.
Yeah.
So again, these whole conversations with like Black British people, Africans or African Americans who are saying that Black Americans, like, what is your struggle? You have no culture. It's like, if someone's to look at you, they're going to assume the same, they're going to throw the same rhetoric at you.
Yeah.
And then
so it's like, why is it coming from you?
Right.
Yeah. And like, just to further on the point of that man, he really got in an interview with a Black American. He was on a podcast, 2 Black Americans actually. And he essentially said that he feels like he's the perfect person to do that Talk to a Black Man series, because he feels like Black Americans are too close to the subject of like racism because we're Black Americans, and that he's so far from it because he's a Nigerian American. And then people were like, didn't y'all just get out of colonialism like 2 seconds? He was trying to say that Nigerian people do not have any wounds when it comes to racism or anything like that, and so that he's good. Yeah. And of course,
my father was born before, let me think before I say something.
What year?
My dad was born before Nigeria had its independence.
Yeah.
He was a child.
Yeah.
Right? My mom was born around the time of the beginning of the Biafran War.
Oh my God.
There are people that is literally, it's one generation above me. Yeah. There's people who are still alive, who are not old. They're still young, who were alive before Nigeria had their independence. What do you mean that there's no scars from colonialism? What does that even mean?
You see? And so that's why
that blows me.
It's like with friends like these, who needs enemies? It's like that vibe. Like, okay, you're trying to be an op to the Black American community because you feel like you're better than us. Like, that's the baseline, and that's like the energy I get whenever I see these videos where, there's a whole host of them, different cases, but I always get the sense where they're like trying to act like they're better or somehow superior than Black Americans for whatever reason. Right? Maybe it's the fact that they came here and their family made it and they're looking at us like, oh, what happened to you? Or, the aspect of being like, I know where I'm from, you don't. Right? And I don't know where it stems from. I've been seeing some communication in the Black community, TikTok, whatever, my For You page. It's really for me. Where, Black Americans have kind of looked back and been like, are you guys jealous of us? Are you jealous?
Mm-hmm.
Because when you really think about it, like Black Americans, we really hold a lot of culture. Like in America, a lot of the culture, especially like if you think of like Hollywood and stuff like that, all of the minstrel shows. Have you heard of minstrelsy?
Mm-mm.
Oh, we about to get into some education.
Eek.
You've heard of blackface.
Yes.
So the first like introduction of American performing arts, like the baseline to before film. You know what I mean? Before film was even a thing, there used to be minstrelsy and vaudeville shows.
Okay.
And it was essentially white people dressing up as black people and making fun of them. That's the whole premise. And they would tour the country and perform these. All white people would attend. They would love it. It was the first national pastime of America.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy.
Oh my gosh.
And then on top of this, like, okay, white people started this. They would have black people come in. Mm-hmm. If you want to get on the stage, you're going to paint yourself black and make fun of black people.
So black people would paint themselves.
Black people would also have to do blackface if they wanted to be entertainers. Yikes.
That is a big yikes.
And so that is the baseline of this country's entertainment. Black people.
I don't like. Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And so in addition to that, the music, every style of music in America is from black people.
Right.
Like all of them have roots in black people. Rock music comes from black people. Blues turned into rock. Country music is black people music.
Yep.
Folk music is black people music. And it's become this thing where it's so proliferated throughout the world that a lot of people take it for granted. And it becomes a thing where like black people make the culture.
Yeah.
But especially black Americans make the culture.
Right.
And so I remember seeing like another TikTok video of this lady basically saying like, oh, well, I don't know why black Americans are so celebrated when our British black actors are the ones acting in your movies. And we're the ones doing this and that and whatever. And so it's kind of like, I don't know. I feel like this like whole diaspora. Is that how you say it? I feel like I'm saying it weird. Diaspora. That's going on is really unnecessary. And I feel like it just needs to stop. Because
I think the way I'm going to say this is
Say it.
What's the point of fighting each other when we all have a common enemy?
We all have a common enemy.
You know, I think, again, I do not see issues in having arguments or having discussions if both parties are receptive, right?
Yeah.
You learn by talking. If your purview is of a British American person and you're claiming that what you know about American or black Americans is what is you see on social media. Social media is curated to speak a certain narrative, right? And typically it's a racist narrative to put black people down.
Yep.
If you are stating that and you go like, if a black British person came up to you and asked you how to think or was telling you, it's like, oh, well, I don't feel like you have any root in your cuisine. Like all y'all eat is mac and cheese and collard greens. And this is from a video that we've seen on TikTok.
Yep.
I feel like if you're a rational person, you'd probably turn to them and be like, well, hey, this is the story behind it. Like you might think that this is,
and there is a story behind it,
right? But there is a story. There's a story behind everything when it comes to culture, because culture is stories built on history. If a black British person was able to sit down and have that conversation with you and be receptive to hearing and understanding, I don't think there would be an issue.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, I don't understand because it seems very performative. Right? To go and state that we are more superior. And so who are you performing for?
The white man.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're performing for the white man to put yourself on a higher hierarchy to try to gain certain rights that are given only solely to white people that you're never going to achieve.
Yeah.
So then at that point, your issue is not a black American, black British people or Caribbean people. Your issue is the white people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, Cindy. I think that's why I get so frustrated too, because it's like, okay, we already get all this flack from literally every other racial group in America. Like the fact that every language has a derogatory term for black people.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy.
It's crazy.
Actually crazy. And so I'm like, dang, we get it from everybody else.
And I don't know where that came from.
And you're giving it to us
Oh,
too.
actually, I know where it came from.
Yeah, white supremacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I hope in the future, black people, we can kind of let this go. And I will say we kind of focused on, Black Brits and other people in the diaspora coming towards black Americans. It also goes the other way. I've heard of, immigrant black people coming to America, and they say that the black Americans were mean to them. Definitely a thing.
That's more of the stories that I heard growing up, because at least with my father, that was his biggest situation and biggest issue. One of the stories that he told me was that when he came here, he was a kid. He got in college, but he had no money.
Yep.
And the first place he went to was Mississippi.
Oh, why did he go to Mississippi?
So here's the thing, right? Again, social media is all you're going to see. So all you know is about California.
Yeah.
And so he thought as soon as he came to America, he would have an opportunity to get to California, or everywhere was like California.
And he was on the other side of the country. Yikes.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
There's not much that's discussed. When it comes to America, you see Hollywood. Yep. You see Los Angeles.
They make it look like we're all filthy
right?
Rich.
And especially back then. So like America used to be seen as a land of gold, right? So if you're a young kid, an impressionable kid who your whole thought process is, I want to do better for myself than what my parents did, and America is a land of opportunities. All I need to do is get myself to America.
Yep.
And you find somebody who's willing to help you get to America, and they say you're going to Mississippi. You're not researching on what Mississippi is and what it's like to be a black person in Mississippi. You're just saying, let's go.
And the way that I already know that that's a horrible place. Like there's a lot of racist policies there. Like black people are kept down there specifically.
Right. So, and let's just take it like a step further, right? You're coming to America with nothing. And you're looking for a job, right? Especially with the conversation that we had where it's like, if you're on a visa, you do something wrong and you can easily be sent back.
Yep.
A lot of what my dad faced was like, he would be taking jobs where like they would have certain like quotas where they needed to have a certain number of black people, and he would just be a dishwasher. And he would be taking things and doing things that other black people that he worked around would say you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
And they would come to him and be like, why are you doing that? You're making us look bad, because they're going to looking at you and think, oh, well, he's a black person. He's okay with this. So all the other black people are going to do it.
Yep.
And he said it made him feel, he never felt safe because white people didn't treat him right. And then also the black people didn't treat him right. But all he really needed was he needed money to be able to continue to live in America.
Yep.
Because if not, he was a failure and he would have to go back. And getting a visa once to get to the United States back then, difficult.
Miracle.
Can you imagine trying to do that twice?
No. I don't even think they would let you back in. They'd be like, girl, you already had your chance.
Right? So it's hard because I can understand both sides.
Yep.
And again, I think the stem of the issue is white people. Yeah. Because if you take time to sit and listen to my dad had an opportunity to sit and talk to them, or they had an opportunity to listen to my father, I feel like you could see that both situations are valid.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
But yeah, so yeah, I could see both. But again, definitely. That was also a lot of difficulty, because that was a lot of the information that I was hearing growing up was the hardships that my father had. But again, even though, ethnically I'm Nigerian, my race and my nationality is black and American. Yeah. And that's how I navigated the world. So a lot of the information that was being fed to me was from the black American struggle. Yeah. So it's just it was a balance. Balance. Yeah. Period. Balancing.
But yeah, I'm hoping in the future we can come together as one.
Come together.
We are the world.
We are the children.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that there's a path where we're all not the same. We all have our different things, different traditions, different cultures. Not one is better than the other. We're
Agreed.
all different.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think we need to get to a place where people are more open to learning about other people's history.
Yeah.
And understanding why people are the way they are.
Right.
Because I really just don't like the idea of just like steamrolling someone with your own opinion and not hearing them out.
Yeah.
When they're saying, hey, maybe you should take a step back and actually listen to what people are saying.
Right.
And, you know, that applies to everything in life.
Of course.
So, yeah, those are the vibes.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel after this conversation? Is it cathartic?
It was cathartic because I was mad. I was rewatching the TikToks like, these hoes.
And I was like, I understand, kind of, but I'm here to support.
I'm like, I'm feeling hot. And it's not just these lights.
All of the lights.
All of the lights under the dark.
But yeah, no, I think this was a good conversation.
Yeah.
We rallied.
Yep.
Thank you, caffeine.
Caffeine. I had some candy. Don't tell my doctor.
Hopefully your doctor doesn't listen to this podcast.
Oh, she don't.
You never know.
You never know.
We're posting on socials. For you page could be for her page.
Oh no. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry.
I bet it was good.
It was good.
I feel like also having coffee at this time of night wasn't a smart decision.
Good luck going to sleep.
Yeah, we'll see how my life goes tomorrow. I got work in the morning.
You know, tomorrow's a new day.
Yep.
All right, Cindy. Good chat.
Good chat.
Bye.
Till next time.
Is someone knocking on my door? Hello? Open the door. Open the door. I'm filming a podcast right now. Goodbye.
Hi.
You want to say hi to the podcast?
No, thank you.
Okay, bye.